call the regular board meeting to order for Tuesday, June the 11th, 2013. Ask we all stand. And Alderman Barnhill will give the invocation, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you bow with me? Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the many blessings that we have in this great community. We know that we're truly a blessed community and certainly a blessed nation. We give you thanks for these. We know that there are many places in this world that are troubled and that there are many places that are not blessed as we are. We ask that you be with this, look at this world and make sure that we're doing everything that we can from the United States standpoint, that our soldiers and our families of the soldiers are not in harm's way. We also ask that you give us the spiritual wisdom and guidance that we need as we make decisions that ultimately affect the citizens of Franklin and the city of Franklin. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Item number 4 are grievances or statements from citizens for items that are not on the agenda. Does anyone want to address this body? I see no one. We'll move on. Are there any communications for Williamson County government? I see none. We'll go to item 6, approval of minutes, May the 28th, 2013 work session, May the 28th, 2013 Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Would entertain a motion.
Move for approval. Second.
Appropriate motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Are there any miscellaneous reports tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 9. The consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body. They will be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. Tonight we're considering items number 28 through 36. Is there a motion?
Move for approval. Second.
Appropriate motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 10. This is a public hearing. Consideration ordinance 2013-15, an ordinance to rezone 80.88 acres to the Height Overlay District for the property located at the southeast quadrant of East McEwen Drive and South Carruthers Parkway. Does anyone would like to make any public comments? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
I move for approval. Second.
Appropriate motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 11. This is a public hearing. Consideration ordinance 2013-16, an ordinance to rezone 57.23 acres from agricultural district to residential variety district for the properties located south of South Carruthers, north of the Harpeth River, and along the proposed South Carruthers Parkway. Does anyone want to address this body? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Appropriate motion, seconded by Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 12, this is a public hearing, consideration of resolution 2013-18, a resolution to approve the development plan for the Helm Square PUD subdivision on 57.23 acres for the property located at 4419 South Carruthers Road. Does anyone want to address this body? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
Second.
Second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Alderman Peterson.
This contains some modification of standards request, and I'd like to, actually, in looking back at this, I need to ask a question, too. In the picture that we have for this, it shows some front-loading garages. It shows some front-loading garages on this, and so where are they supposed to be located? Because
Nobody.
that wasn't a modification of standards, right?
Track
Okay.
back. Where are we?
But I mean, allowing a front-loading garages,
That's fine.
Well,
She's asking.
Not exactly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Pascarella. I'm with Pearl Street Partners. We're the applicant for this community. I think, Alderman Peterson, if I understand your question, just like several of the communities in town, Barclay being one, West Haven, some others, we have a combination of homes in the community that have front-facing garages as well as side and rear-facing garages. The front-facing garages comply with all the Franklin design standards. They will have single wide doors, I think they're 9-foot doors, with a separation in between them. The request that we've made before the board is, yes, ma'am.
But I was going to ask you, I thought we had to have a modification of standards for front-loaded garages, too.
Not that I'm aware of. No, ma'am.
I just, that's, I want to get to, my main point is
Yes, ma'am.
your comment, but whenever I saw that, I wondered.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
Alderman Peterson, front-loading garages have to be 10 feet back and 22 feet from the
Okay,
sidewalk,
that was my question.
but they do not have to, but they are allowed, they just have to meet
Right,
certain
right.
criteria.
Whenever I saw that, I knew it wasn't a modification of standards, but now let's get to the other one, which is a modification of standards. I guess, do you want to give him a chance to talk first?
I'm just available to
Well,
answer questions. We're in
I'm
agreement
trying to
with all
remember whether I
steps.
closed the public hearing or not, but,
You did.
okay, well,
You
good.
closed the
So,
public hearing.
Anybody else want to make any comments?
I do, but the public hearing is closed.
The public hearing is closed,
Okay.
and we had a motion.
And you've already had a motion and a
So we-
second.
So you
That's
can
right, that's right.
discuss.
Okay.
We're on a good roll of moving on through these, and then,
I had a question, Chris, about these units that I thought were backing up, but they're not. I had that clarified, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now then, let's talk about the modification standards that you are requesting. I guess, do you want to tell it, or?
You have a question?
you have
Is it your question?
a comment?
Mr.
question?
Mayor, in order to discuss the modification of standards, you're going to need a motion to entertain the modification of
Well,
standards.
it's true,
So,
that's true.
So right now, you just have the general
Amendment.
Oh, okay.
application, and we should move through the
Good point.
modifications of standard to have that discussion and then vote on those specifically.
Okay, so I'll need a motion to amend the motion, would that be correct, to consider
To
the,
provide for the modification of standards, which is
Amendment, you need amendment.
the garage
okay, is
door.
there an amendment to consider the modification standards
We
separate?
gotta have something.
Hearing none, we'll.
Well, wait a
Go ahead.
minute. If you want, I don't mind doing that. I'll make that motion to hear the modifications of standards. Is that what you want to do?
No, it's an
To
amendment.
consider them.
To consider
Consider
them.
whether to vote them up and down. Is that correct?
Well,
You're
you can do a
considering it.
motion to approve the modification.
Oh.
Well, no, I'm not
separate
moving, I'm not moving that. I'm moving to discuss it,
No.
to discuss them.
You don't need that.
so if it's there, and we're just gonna discuss it and not.
Don't we have to vote
No,
on
we
each
have to vote.
modification of standards?
Shauna, no.
If there's a, you
just
need a
take them
motion,
separately
you
out.
need a motion to do that, to consider them.
All right, I move that we consider the modifications of standards that you're asking for.
Second.
Appropriate amendment to consider each modification of standard, and it's
There's
been.
one.
Each, or is it?
one.
There's just one?
There's one about the garage door.
Okay,
One.
and it's been seconded.
Okay, now I
Any discussion on the amendment?
All right, tell us what you want amended. Tell us what you want modified.
You may.
The purpose of the modification of standards is this. For some period of time now, it has been fairly typical and standard in Franklin where homes that have side entry garages that enter from the front or homes that have rear alleys with alley entrance garages are installed with effectively a 2-car wide door. And they're prolific throughout the town. In fact, I think it'd be very difficult, if not impossible, to find a situation, especially on an alley load, where you could find single doors. And we had this discussion at the work session, and I know, Alderman Martin, you weren't able to be present for that, but we had a discussion about this at the work session. And So really what we're after here is, we understand that, that staff is aware that this came up within the last few months, that apparently the way the ordinance is being interpreted or understood is that you really have to put individual one-car garage doors regardless of where you are. And from a practical standpoint, it's very, very difficult, especially on alleys where you may have an apron as shallow as 4 feet from the alleyway in order to maneuver a car into a garage if you're dealing with 2 individual doors versus 1 door that can be opened that allows more maneuverability for the vehicle to enter the garage. So, and that really, that same issue applies to side entry garages as well. So the request that we've made was that effectively we really are recognizing that that staff is working on an amendment to the ordinance that would clarify this point, allowing for two-car doors on those side and alley entrances, but recognizing that that is tracking, 2, 3, 4 months potentially behind our development plan approval process, and that will become before this body, be subject to a vote. We don't know, whether that will be instituted or not. Our entire plan, especially all of our alley-loaded homes, are being engineered and designed to accommodate for either the 4-foot setback or the 19-foot setback, which is part of the design standards for the city, that there's nowhere in between. It's either a 4-foot apron or a 20-foot driveway. And so we simply felt like it was prudent for us to request the modification of standards to effectively be able to develop the community as most, if not all, communities have been developed in Franklin that have these alleys and these side entrances. Aesthetically, they really aren't, in our opinion, are not, they don't reduce the quality of the aesthetic to the community, especially on the alleys. And we think there are a lot of good examples of how those can be, done very well. So our request was to add this as a modification of standards so that we could have a clean path to move to the next step, which is full engineering and construction plans.
Thank you.
Other discussion on the amendment?
Well,
Alderman Peterson.
a couple of things. This has been in the zoning ordinance since we approved it in 2008. It was stated in here that the Planning Commission recently approved the same request for another project at an earlier meeting. That project already had a number of houses that had been built in earlier years that had the double-wide garage doors. And so at that time, it was my thought that they were approved because they already had a lot of houses that were built with the double-wide garage doors. But actually, since 2008, it has been that you would have single garage doors.
Right.
And so there has been a discussion with the design professionals about making a change in this. If you notice here, this was a 4-3 vote, and believe me, it wasn't the same 4 and the same 3 all the times. We had talked about another 4-3 vote there. But thinking that if this does get approved, then it would be okay to approve the double-wide doors here. But since it's coming up for probably a presentation and a vote before they would be building the houses, that it probably should wait until a decision is made.
Alderman Martin.
Ordinarily, I would agree with you about that because I don't have a good taste in my mouth for modification of standards, period. But I do understand this because and I've been to a lot of areas that you have told me about, Chris, and the the alleys do have the double wide, and it would be very difficult to make that turn in, and certainly with a side, with that post in the middle, it would be hard to make that turn. So in this case, I would certainly,
Only one.
I would certainly agree that this would be the thing to do. Ordinarily, but you know how I feel about modifications of standards.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I say, what our standards are, build to them. But in this case, I do think that this is a case where we could bend a little.
Alderman Scanner.
Can somebody explain to me why we prefer single-door garages over double on rear or side entries? What,
It's
Because
an
of,
aesthetic.
aesthetics? Okay, that's fine.
And
Here we go
I
again.
think it's important to note also that staff is in support of the modification that we requested as
Yeah,
well.
they are.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approval of the amendment to consider the modification, am I stating this correctly? Make sure,
Well,
approve
that
the
it-
modification of standards.
that we approve it.
Approve it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I'll let the record show passes 7-1 with the amendment. Now, consideration of the motion as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 13, consideration ordinance 2013-22, an ordinance of the City of Franklin, Tennessee, adopting a budget for fiscal year 2013-14, providing an effective date of, and this is the second of 3 readings. Before I open the public hearing, I would ask if Mr. Stuckey might go through a brief presentation for our viewing audience and the people, the citizens present here tonight. So, Mr. Stuckey, before we
you.
open the public hearing, tell us about it.
Thank you very much. I just appreciate the opportunity to just give an overview of the budget. Those of you that are members of the Budget and Finance Committee, this is about 25 slides lighter than what you saw a month or so ago. So you can breathe easy. It's a little lighter in that regard. But we're proud of the budget that is being presented that you're considering for second reading tonight. It's been a collaborative work over many months between our city team and aldermen, the feedback that we get, especially at the Budget and Finance Committee, and want to give the community an overview of this budget and this spending plan for the upcoming fiscal year, which will start July 1. The general fund budget itself is just under $58 million. This does represent an increase of about 4.6%. A good chunk of that relates to some capital projects that are also grant funded, at least largely grant funded, about $3.1 million in our TOC area that include that increase. And we still, even with that large grant, are below the budget that we had back in 2008, 2009. So our departments, our team has continued to have good and appropriate spending discipline, but have still managed to focus on improving services to the community. The total all funds operating budget is right at $87 million, which represents a 6% increase, and again, that includes $3 million in capital and TOC, which is largely grant funded, and about $1.4 million in our facilities tax fund that provides for construction to begin on an additional fire station. Again, a decision that you will give us guidance on, I would expect, during the capital investment project process that we're getting ready to start here in the next week or so. The budget is structurally balanced. We have no use of reserves planned at all, and we have maintained all of our service levels and continue the enhancements that you've seen in the last several years. The general fund is in compliance with your policies, both debt and reserve policies. It does incorporate a 2% general market adjustment for our employees effective July 5th of 2013. And also a second year of a merit pay program, a bonus program that we've developed that helps reward employees directly for their performance on major work objectives with one-time supplements to their pay. We are planning for the implementation of the classification and compensation study, which will provide a new pay program for the city. You will see a presentation about that at your next meeting on June 25th. And we plan for implementation of that sometime in the first quarter of the fiscal year. So you have some time to work through that, but we have provided for the funding of the implementation of that program, at least in terms of getting everyone into the appropriate pay grades. This does include a continuation of the current level of our property tax rate, which is just under 38 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. And this is the 27th year without a property tax increase. There is, again, no use of our reserves. That's the second year in a row that we've not used that for even one-time capital uses, and that's a sign of the improving economy and the improving picture for us from a revenue standpoint especially as it relates to sales tax. When we prepared this budget, there's some big picture goals we wanted to make sure that we were focused on. First and foremost, that we were maintaining high quality services to our citizens, that we were investing in the future, and thus putting our community in the best position possible to compete. We think we compete every day for jobs and investment and for the decisions families make about living in this community. We want to focus on the possibilities of the kind of community we can be, and not just the current challenges, and want to, especially in this last year, you've all been a critical part of a lot of long-term planning that helps us prepare for growth that we know is coming. But all of that growth happens in a way that we want to maintain the unique, special quality of Franklin that brought us all here to begin with. Looking at the numbers and the big picture, where does the money come from? Primarily, it comes from sales tax. Close to 48% of our revenue is from that one source. And then interlocal dollars that are shared back to us from the state. And then our property tax make up the big three and the primary revenue sources that we have. Next, you may ask, where do we spend it? And the next two charts will show you two different ways to look at that. About 2/3 of our budget goes to personnel costs, which is salaries and benefits of our employees. We are definitely in the people business. When you look at how we deliver our services, we do it through our staff, especially when you look at public safety. Those areas are probably around 80% personnel related in terms of their costs. And then the balance of our budget comes from our operating capital and our contracts and materials that help us do our jobs in terms of serving the community. When you look at it by functional area, close to half of those expenditures go to the public safety areas, police and fire, and then there's really a pretty comparable balance in all the other areas, streets, parks, our administrative areas, the development areas, planning, building and neighborhood services all comprise the balance of that budget. One of the things I want to highlight, this is a chart that is probably not real easy to see tonight, but one of the important things to highlight is continued contribution in the current fiscal year to our reserves. This is the second year in a row we've been able to put money back into our reserves, into our rainy day fund, if you will, and we project that we will add over $2 million into that reserve this year. And that is an important part of maintaining a fiscally strong and stable city government. And again, that's the second year in a row, and you see us at a level of reserves that we haven't been at for about 4 or 5 years. So that is a positive, and again, a sign of continued recovery that we see in the local economy, which translates to the revenues that the city is able to collect. One of the other things I want to highlight is just the relationship between sales tax and property tax. If we were to look at most every other city in Tennessee, that would probably be the inverse. Exactly. We see a 2-to-1 ratio of sales tax to property tax, and in most communities it's the other way around, probably a 2-to-1 ratio in favor of property tax. Because we have the assets that we do in the community in terms of a large regional mall, a very productive downtown that attracts lots of visitors as well, we do produce a lot of sales tax that outweigh and enable us to maintain a very low property tax. The risk to that, and the reason we have a high reserve, is also that is a revenue source that is subject to economic fluctuations. We experienced that 4 years ago when the downturn happened in the economy. We experienced after that a 23-month period of declining sales tax compared to the prior year. We're in a period of time of close to probably 2.5 years of consecutive months of increase compared to the prior year. So we experienced the downside, we're experiencing more of the upside of that, but that is a primary reason we maintain the level of reserves we do, because of that dependence on sales tax, and it's an issue we need to continue to be mindful of. One of the things I wanted to highlight on this next chart is just our pension contribution. This has been an important element, and the board, I think wisely, 4 years ago invested an additional $2 million to help stabilize that pension fund, to help put us in a better position. And you see, even the following year, maintained a higher investment than we'd been at in the previous years. And we can really see that paying off. And one of the things we said at the time is that we were hopeful that those investments made the right way would enable us over time to reduce the amount of operational dollars that was in year in, year out that we would have to put into the pension, because we thought that would stabilize it, and fortunately the market recovery has helped us there as well. And you see that with a pension contribution in this year's budget based on the actuarial recommendation at $4.1 million, a level we have not been at since 2006. So, and that's all to say at a pension that is now funded at over 90% of our investment target. So it's all of those pieces coming together, and a continued positive story of the improvement of that pension, and something that is for us an important commitment we've made to our employees, but also an important competitive advantage because we have a good pension program that attracts employees and retains employees. I want to hit just a few other key points in the general fund budget. We have added some targeted increases in staffing, in particular in parks, streets, and building and neighborhood services. All of those really do tie back to the increase in growth and activity that we see in the community. We have more demands for our parks, and our street crews are going to need to maintain areas that are expanding in terms of roadways, and areas that are developing, and investments that are happening in the community in areas like the widening and improvements at Mac Hatcher. And as you see developments come on board, we've got to be able to meet those needs. And the building and neighborhood services staff increase as we have increased demands for those services, both in terms of permitting and inspections. We do provide for a special census in this budget. The real growth that the community has experienced, we estimate somewhere around between 3,000 and 4,000 residents since the 2010 census that took place. And ballpark, you get about $100 per additional head of population. So that will pay off immediately in terms of the return to us, in terms of additional shared revenue that the city would realize. A couple other things I just want to highlight just from the other funds, the non-general fund areas. We continue to provide an additional subsidy, as we did last year, to help with street resurfacing on neighborhood streets. We are putting about $490,000 of general fund transfer to help augment that paving cycle and to get us closer to our goal, but we are still well below the target that we set for ourselves in terms of resurfacing. We do also have a significant amount of funding in there for sidewalk repair and sidewalks in the community at $165,000. In our solid waste area, which we are proposing to change the name of that department to Sanitation and Environmental Services, a couple key things I want to highlight there is that we are now moving from the residential recycling program, the Blue Bag program, being a pilot program, to being a part of our regular city services. That 3-year pilot is concluding at the end of this fiscal year, and the success of that program warrants a continuation into our ongoing operations of providing that service. And it has been part of a bigger picture of really enhancing the way that solid waste and program works in terms of providing more options to divert from the landfill, to improve the efficiency of how we do and operate in going to the landfill, and things like our compost program. All of those pieces add up to a more efficient operation. And if you look at where we were in 2008 in terms of general fund subsidy, we're somewhere around $4.6 million of general fund money going into that solid waste fund. This budget includes a general fund subsidy of $500,000. So that's an over 85% decrease in the general fund subsidy going into that operation from what we had just 5-6 years ago. We had 2 rate increases in 9 and 10, but we will now be a 4th year without a rate increase, and so significant traction has been gained in the last few years as we have improved, I think, our services. And in fact, we've decreased that general fund subsidy while we've enhanced services. We brought online things like BOPA and the residential recycling, all to improve services to our citizens. And then just in conclusion, we have a budget that is structurally balanced. meets the budget goals and objectives that the board set, even though we continue to face challenging times, and does provide for continued strong services, and our revenues do reflect a continuation of economic recovery in the community. We do continue to have a high dependency on sales tax, and that's something we need to watch and keep an eye on. But are proud of, I think, a well-balanced budget, both fiscally, but in terms of the quality of service that we provide our residents. I would be remiss if I didn't offer thanks to our team, who put lots of hours into this thing and getting it to you. Lots of long meetings in February, March, and April with the Budget and Finance Committee to go through it. But well thought of, well conceived budgets and ideas to really deliver services for a growing dynamic community. And we're proud to bring that forward. I want to thank everybody in every department that put into this, and the finance department in particular for their efforts, and my compatriots who helped me put this together for you and with the guidance that we received throughout this process. With that, I turn it back over to you, Mayor.
I think that deserves.
I have 25 more slides if you want them.
We're good.
I think we'll get into the public hearing rather than see those 25, if you
That's
don't
probably a
mind.
good move.
The public hearing, I declare the public hearing now open. It's open for public comment. Does anyone want to address this body? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed and would ask if there's a motion to approve
I
the
move
budget.
for approval, and I also want to echo the thanks to all the employees and all the people that spent all this time on it. They've come up with a really good.
Absolutely.
Second.
Second. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 14, this is a public hearing, consideration ordinance 2013-23, an ordinance of the City of Franklin, Tennessee, establishing the municipal property tax levy for the fiscal year 2013-14, providing an effective date. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Is there a motion?
So moved. Oh, excuse me.
Appropriate motion by Alderman Bransford and
I'll
seconded
second.
by Alderman Martin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 15, consideration ordinance 2013-18 as amended to be entitled an ordinance to amend Title 22, Chapter 1 of the Franklin Municipal Code relative to compensation for the mayor and aldermen of the city of Franklin. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-3. Next is new business, item 16, consideration of resolution 2013-37, a resolution awarding the construction contract to Mountain States Contractors LLC in the amount of $10,262,066.99 for the Carruthers South project. Is there a motion? Appropriate motion from Alderman Skinner,
Second.
second by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 17, consideration resolution number 2013-35, a resolution to cancel the beer board schedule meeting date of July the 9th, 2013.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion,
Second.
second by Alderman Berger. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 18, consideration of professional services agreement, City of Franklin Contract 2013-0021 with CDM Smith Incorporated for construction engineering and inspection services for the Carruthers Parkway South Extension Project in an amount not to exceed $860,000.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
Second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 19, consideration of amendment number 1, City of Franklin Contract 2011-0129, TDOT contract number 110291 with the Tennessee Department of Transportation for the Franklin ITS infrastructure project.
Move for approval.
Second.
Appropriate motion is seconded by Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 20, consideration of event permit application from Franklin's Lion Club for Franklin on the 4th to be held in downtown Franklin on July the 4th, 2013.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
Second.
Second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? This is strictly board. Is that okay?
We can ready to
Okay.
prove it.
I think the comment was just going to be that they are willing to stop at 8 o'clock. Just, to finish earlier.
Do we have a finish time
that's necessary.
figured out yet? Do we have a clue? 8 o'clock?
Good,
8
good,
o'clock, yeah.
okay.
Alderman Scanner?
I want to go on record that I am a new member of the
Here we go again.
Noon Lions Club, and but I can make an objective decision despite that.
And I'm also a member.
Those comments are registered in the record, and it's now
not a
time to
member of
vote.
any.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
I'm not a member of any club, and I'd be suspicious of one that would have me.
Item 21, consideration of event permit application from Lululemon Athletica for Yoga on the Square to be held on the Square in downtown Franklin on September 15th or 29th, 2013. And I would ask for a motion, but I would ask for some clarification as far as the location of the event.
The applicant has requested downtown. That's the application you have in front of you. Staff recommended that we not provide it have the event downtown, but have it at Harlansdale. So just as the item before you came, as the applicant requested, we're doing the same with this item, but the recommendation from staff was to move it to Harlansdale.
I'll move approval.
You move what?
I move for approval.
That happened downtown.
To have
That's
it
a downtown.
downtown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Appropriate motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Berger?
I have a reason.
Go ahead, Alderman, Vice Mayor.
Well, first of all, with no disrespect to any of these other groups that we see come through, it does appear to me that there is neither rhyme nor reason to our approval for closing the square. But if there were, I would find it hard to argue this one. They want to close a portion for a little while. And we go around closing the whole thing for days. And here, these people just want to come down here and do a session, a practice, for a couple hours on a Sunday evening. And we're going to tell them no. So I do not understand how we sort the good from the bad. It clearly cannot be based upon the perceived burden upon our traffic and our passers-by. Because if it were based upon that, this one would get no discussion at all and would be approved 8-0. So it must be something else. But after 15 years, I cannot tell you what it is.
Any other discussion? Alderman Scanner.
I move to amend that the location be at Harlansdale.
Appropriate amendment. Is there a second for the amendment to the motion?
I'll second that.
Discussion on the amendment.
At the work session with the applicants, I think I can only speak for myself, made it clear that I would be supporting them being at Harlansdale and creating a new venue for them to have an ongoing, to establish a historical site for them to have their annual event. So I will continue to support that mindset.
I do want to clarify one thing. They may have said something different in the work session last meeting, but the application and what we understood from the staff review is that they were requesting to shut off the entire square. That's what was submitted. So I just want to be clear that that's what was asked of us to do on a Sunday evening, and they had two different options for dates in September. Just wanted to clarify that.
Good clarification. Ready to vote on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show the amendment passed 6-2. Correct? I didn't miss anybody, did I? Okay. Now we're ready to vote on the motion as amended, or rather to discuss it.
Well, I'm going to support the motion as amended because I'd rather have some yoga than none.
Any other discussion?
I guess we needed that.
I like the way you phrased that better than how you said to me last week.
All in favor of
I don't
the
know what you
motion
mean.
as amended, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
Passes unanimously. Item 22, consideration of liquor license retailer certificate renewal for Brinkman's Wine and Spirits.
Move for approval.
Second.
Appropriate motion, seconded by Alderman Bransford. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 23, consideration of liquor license retailer certificate for Harpeth Liquors. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion,
Second.
second by Alderman Berger.
Sleeping at the wheel here.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 24, consideration of mayor's appointment to the Franklin Transit Authority Board. Now I want to reappoint Preston Elliott and Nancy Fletcher Bloom for 4-year terms, and I'll need a motion to approve that.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion.
Second.
Second by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is the mayor, consideration of the mayor's appointment to the Franklin, rather to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and reappointment of Frank Jones for a 5-year term, and I need a motion to approve that.
So move.
Second.
Appropriate motion, second by Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is item 26, consideration of appointment of representatives, Franklin Municipal Planning Commission, and I'm reappointing Marcia Allen and Lisa Gregory to 5-year terms, and I need no action on that. And then number 27, consideration of mayor's appointment to the Building and Street Standards Board, and I'm going to reappoint Sarah Salge, professional mechanical engineer, Billy Robbins, certified electrician, Harry Harris, registered architect, lead accredited, to all to 5-year terms, and I do need a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Appropriate motion, second by Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Look for a motion for adjournment. Adios. No executive session. And was there a second?
Second.
And before we take the vote, happy birthday to Ellen. And all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Don't.